The Trade at Dustfire Tavern. Dustfire Tavern was dark, hot, and full of smoke. Outside, the twin suns of planet Arcanine were burning the sand. Inside, the tavern was quiet except for the hum of broken lights and whispers from tired travelers. Human Man sat alone at a corner table. His name was Jace River, a poor mechanic from Earth who had come to Arcanine looking for work, but found only dust and hunger. His boots were worn and his eyes showed he hadn't slept well in days. He had only 1 credit left, just enough for 1 cheap drink. He raised his hand for the bartender when the door slammed open. A tall, drunk alien stumbled inside. His skin was gray and rough like rock, and his eyes were bloodshot. Behind him, dragging 2 chains, were 2 alien girls, young, silent, and beautiful. Their skin was smooth and glowing faintly, and they had long silver hair that fell over their strange clothes. Their wrists were bruised from the chains. The crowd in the tavern stared for a moment, then looked away. No one cared, no one ever did. The drunk alien laughed and shouted, "1 drink, just 1, that's all I want for both of them." Jace blinked. He thought it was a joke. The alien pointed at Jace. "You, human, you look like you need some company. I'll trade these 2 for 1 bottle of burn whiskey. That's it." The girls didn't speak. Their eyes locked with Jace's, big, glowing, and full of sadness. Jace stood up slowly. "Why are you selling them?" The drunk alien shrugged. "They're trouble, always running, never talking, got 'em in a bet. Worthless." Jace looked down at the 1 coin in his hand. It was everything he had left. He looked at the girls, again. Their clothes were dirty, but he could see something strange on their skin, symbols like ancient tattoos glowing faintly under the light. Something about them felt important. He walked up to the bar and placed his last coin down. 1 bottle of burn whiskey." The bartender raised an eyebrow but slid the bottle across. Jace turned and held it out. "Here." The alien snatched the bottle, laughed, and dropped the chains. "They're yours now, human. Hope they don't bite." The 2 girls didn't move at first. Then the older one stepped forward and gently helped the younger one up. Without a word, they followed Jace out of the tavern into the burning red dust outside. As they disappeared into the heat, someone in the tavern whispered, "That fool doesn't know what he just bought." Jace walked slowly toward the broken shelter he called home, just an old shipwreck turned into a small hut. The girls followed him quietly, never speaking, never running. He looked over his shoulder. "Do you understand me?" The older girl nodded once. "Do you have names?" No answer. He stopped walking. "Listen, I don't know what's happening here, but I didn't buy you to own you. You're free now. You can go anywhere." The younger one looked scared. The older one stepped in front of her and held her arm protectively. Jace sighed. "Okay, you can stay if you want. It's not much, but it's safe." When they arrived at the shelter, he gave them water and some old food packets. They ate quietly, sitting close to each other. The sun was setting, turning the sky a deep purple. Jace sat against the wall and closed his eyes for a moment. Then suddenly, a noise. He opened his eyes. The younger girl was shaking, eyes wide. She began to scream in a strange language. Her skin glowed bright for a moment before fading again. The older girl held her tightly and whispered something in her ear, calming her. Jace stood up. "What's wrong with her?" No answer. He walked closer, trying to help, but accidentally cut his palm on a sharp piece of metal. "Ow!" The older girl grabbed his hand gently. Her touch was warm. Then, without saying a word, she placed her fingers over the wound. Jace gasped. A soft light passed through her fingers and the cut was gone. He looked at her, shocked. "That's not normal." She pulled her hand back, eyes serious. Jace looked at both of them. Who are you really?" The girls stayed silent. That night, as Jace tried to sleep, a message came through the old radio in the shelter. "Wanted. 2 female fugitives from the Zalari royal house. Extremely dangerous. Escaped slaves. Do not approach. Reward. 10,000 credits alive." Jace sat up fast. The faces in the photo matched the two girls lying quietly near the wall. He whispered, "What have I done?" Jace stared at the old radio screen, the glow of the wanted message burning into his mind. The two girls sleeping. A few feet away were not just victims. They were fugitives. Royal fugitives with a price higher than anything he had ever seen in his life. 10,000 credits. That could fix his ship, buy a new home, and feed him for years. But as he looked at their peaceful faces, he knew something was wrong with the message. These girls didn't look dangerous. They looked broken and afraid. He stood silently for a long moment, then turned off the radio. Morning came slowly on. Arca 9 with the red sun rising over cracked land and shifting dunes. Jace made some weak tea with old leaves and warm water. When the girls woke, he offered them cups. They took them without a word, sitting close together in the corner of the small room, always touching shoulders. He could see now how different they were. The older one had sharper eyes, always watching him, always ready to protect. The younger one was gentler, curious, but clearly frightened by everything. "I know you can understand me," Jace said quietly. "I'm not asking where you came from, I just want to know what you need." The older girl looked straight at him but said nothing. Then she raised her hand slowly and pointed to his old ship resting in the sand outside. The message was clear. They needed to leave. Jace scratched his head. That ship hasn't flown in 3 years. Engine's dead. No nav. Barely got a working. Torser. She tilted her head and gave a short nod, as if to say, "Then fix it." He sighed. "I'll try, but it's not going to be easy." The rest of the day passed in silence. Jace worked on the ship while the girls stayed nearby helping when they could. The older one, he started calling her Zira in his mind, handed him tools without being asked. She seemed to know machines. The younger one, Ilari, swept dust from the floor and quietly studied the control panels. That night, Jace made a small fire outside the shelter. They all sat around it, and for the first time, he felt like they were something close to a team. Not a family, not yet, but something warmer than silence. Ilari stared at the flames like she'd never seen them before. Then, out of nowhere, she spoke. "Fire. On our world, it is sacred." Her voice was soft, musical, and full of sadness. Jace looked at her in surprise. "So you do speak?" She nodded once, and Zyra's eyes narrowed, as if warning her sister to say no more. Jace leaned forward. "You're not just fugitives, are you? There's something else." Hilary looked at her sister, then at Jace. "They want to erase us, not just catch us, erase everything we are." "Why?" Zyra stood up fast, her hand glowing faintly at the fingertips. Jace stepped back. "She doesn't mean harm," Hilary said quickly. "We are not normal. On our world, we were created, not born, made by ancient science. Royal blood mixed with something old and powerful. When they found out what we truly were, they said we were mistakes." Jace's heart beat faster. "You're engineered?" Hilary nodded. "We are daughters of a dead queen. Her enemies took the throne. They tried to kill us in secret, but we escaped. Now they've told the galaxy we're dangerous. Monsters." Jace looked at Zira. "And you. You've been protecting her this whole time." Zira didn't reply, but her eyes softened. Just a little. Suddenly the silence was broken by a loud beep from Jace's worn datapad. He picked it up. A message had been sent from Dustfire Tavern to the nearest bounty station. Someone had recognized the girls, and someone was coming. Jace stood. "We need to leave. Now." Zira stepped in front of Ilari and nodded. They packed, fast. Jace threw tools and food into the ship. Zira helped reconnect power to the core systems. Ilari sat in the pilot chair, eyes glowing faintly as if she could feel the ship's mind. Together, they worked like they had done this before. Within an hour, the engine coughed, choked, and finally hummed with life. Jace smiled. "She's not pretty, but she flies." Just then, a bright flash appeared on the horizon. Dust riders. Fast, armed, and closing in. Alari looked at Jace. "We trust you." Zyra stood by the ramp, ready to defend. Jace shouted, "Everyone inside! Let's go!" The ship rose shakily, engines whining. Outside, the bounty hunters fired blasters, but Zyra threw up a shield of blue light, blocking every shot. As they escaped into the sky, Jace turned and said, "You were sold to me for one. Drink. But now I'll protect you with everything I have." And for the first time, Zyra gave a small nod, not of duty, but of trust. The desert stretched below like a sea of rust-colored waves, silent and deadly. Jace gripped the old controls of the ship with sweating hands as it shook and rattled through the heat currents. It had barely taken off, and already the warning. Lights were blinking red. They weren't safe, not even close. Behind them, 2 bounty crafts sliced through the sky, fast and built for war. One had already fired twice. The blast had missed, but just barely. Zyra stood behind him, her eyes glowing slightly, arms crossed, calm as ever. Alari sat beside him, hands on her lap, watching the sky nervously through the cracked front window. The hum of danger filled the small ship. Every second felt like a choice between life and fire. "They're catching up," Jace muttered. "We need more speed." Zyra didn't move, but her voice was firm. "Use the dunes. Drop low. Hide." Jace frowned. "That's suicide." "Trust me." He hesitated, then slammed the controls down. The ship dived sharply toward the surface, skimming just above the shifting sands. The bounty ships followed, but not as smoothly. Wind and dust howled outside, and the ship groaned under pressure. Jace clenched his teeth, hands tight on the wheel. Alari whispered, "There's a canyon. South, 1 kilometer. Jace stared at her. "How do you know?" She didn't answer, but something in her eyes looked ancient, like she could feel the planet itself. The ship skimmed the edge of the dune valley, dropping lower, turning sharply. Behind them, one of the bounty ships dipped too hard and smashed into a rocky rise, exploding in a flash of fire. "One down," Zyra said calmly. The second ship kept coming. Jace spotted a narrow canyon just ahead, dark, sharp, like a mouth, waiting to swallow them. "Hold on!" They shot through the gap. The walls were tight, nearly scraping both sides. But the enemy didn't follow. The ship was too wide, too fast. It pulled up and vanished from sight. Jace flew on for another few minutes before slowing the ship and landing deep in the canyon's shadow. He turned off the power. Silence fell like a blanket. Only the sound of their breathing filled the cabin. "We lost them," he whispered. Zyra nodded. "For now." They climbed out of the ship into the red canyon. Rocks rose high around them, cutting off view from above. It was hot but cooler than the open dunes. Safe, for the moment. Jace sat against the ship, wiping sweat from his brow. "You two are full of surprises." Alari knelt beside a small plant pushing through the rock. "This place remembers things." Jace raised an eyebrow. "You mean, you can read the land?" Alari smiled gently. "We are not just machines or royals. We were made to feel life, connect with worlds. Every planet speaks in its own way." Zyra sat silently on a rock, her eyes still scanning the sky. She had not relaxed once since they escaped. Her posture was sharp, like a warrior ready to strike at any second. Jace looked at her. "You don't sleep much, do you?" "No," she replied. "Sleep is weakness." Jace chuckled softly. "You sound like one of those old Terran soldiers." Zyra's lips curled into the faintest smile. "Maybe we had the same teachers. They stayed hidden for the rest of the day." Jace repaired the ship's systems while Zyra stood guard and Alari walked barefoot over the rocks, closing her eyes and humming softly. It was strange, peaceful, and a little unreal. 3 strangers, running from a galaxy that wanted them dead. That evening, as the twin suns dipped low, Zyra finally spoke. "You need to understand what's coming." Jace looked up from his tools. "I'm listening. The High Council will never stop. We are not just wanted, we are threats to their lies. If you're with us, they'll come for you too." Not just with bounty hunters, but with armies. Jace didn't blink. Then they'll have to find me first. Zira narrowed her eyes. Why are you helping us? Jace thought for a moment. Because no one helped me when I was left to die. I know what it feels like to be forgotten. I don't want to see that happen again. Ilari walked over and sat beside him. Her voice was soft. Then we will protect you too. Jace smiled. I think I just adopted two very powerful sisters. Suddenly Zira froze. Her hand raised quickly, palm glowing. What is it? Jace asked. She pointed up. A small drone hovered in the sky. Silent, almost invisible. It had followed them. Without a second thought, Zira threw a blue bolt of energy. The drone exploded mid-air, raining sparks. Time's up, she said. They ran back into the ship. Jace fired up the engine, and the ship lifted once again, heading toward the stars. They were hunted now, not just across a desert, but across the entire galaxy. The stars above them looked endless. The ship moved quietly through the black sky, far from the desert planet they had just escaped. Jace kept one hand on the controls while his other hand rested near the heat vent. His fingers were trembling not from fear but from the weight of everything. A few days ago he was just a nobody. Now he was running from royal assassins with two alien girls who were more than just fugitives. They were mysteries, living weapons, and somehow starting to feel like family. Ilari stood near the window, her face lit by the passing starlight. She was humming again, soft and strange as if singing to the stars. Zira sat across from Jace, cleaning a long silver blade that had folded out from her wrist like it was part of her body. She had not spoken in over an hour. She didn't need to. Jace broke the silence. You said you weren't just made. You were created to connect, to feel. But how can you trust me so fast? I could have sold you. I could have taken that reward. Zira looked up slowly, eyes cold at first, but then softer. You didn't. That doesn't answer the question, he said. Ilari turned from the window and walked over. Her bare feet made no sound on the floor. Zira and I were born in a cage. We never saw sunlight, never tasted air that wasn't filtered. The first time we felt warmth on our skin was the night you bought us. You gave your last coin for us, not for power or fame. You didn't know what we were, you just gave. Jace looked down. I didn't save you. I just did what felt right. Zira put away her blade. That's what makes you different. Hours passed. Jace showed them how to repair the ship's comms and fix broken panels. Ilari picked up quickly, learning faster than anyone he'd ever seen. Zira said little, but always stayed close. She never let her guard down, not even for a moment. But when Jace burned his hand on a hot coil, it was Zira who caught him and healed him in silence. Later they sat around a small meal. Ilari tasted dried fruit for the first time and smiled. Sweet. We never had sweet things. You've got a lot of living to catch up on, Jace said. She tilted her head. Living? Yeah. Real living. Doing what you choose, not what someone tells you. Laughing. Eating too much. Making mistakes. Ilari looked at Zira. Can we have that, sister? Zira didn't answer right away, but then she looked at Jace. Only if we survive. That night, they took turns watching the scanner. Jace woke to the sound of low voices. Zira and Ilari were talking quietly in their own language. He stayed still, pretending to sleep, listening. He is not like the others, Ilari whispered. He feels pain the way we do. He is still human, Zira replied. They always turn. He hasn't. Not yet. Ilari's voice dropped. I dreamt again. The vision. It's getting clearer. He's in it. Dreams are not fate. They always come true, sister. Jace closed his eyes tighter. They were dreaming about him. What did that mean? The next morning he told them they'd need fuel soon. There was a mining colony a few light jumps away. Dangerous, but their only choice. As they prepared the ship for landing, Zyra walked over to him and placed something in his hand. It was a small glowing stone. "What's this?" Jace asked. "Memory crystal. From our world. It shows truth." Jace turned it slowly in his palm. "Why give it to me?" "Because if we don't make it, you need to know who we were." That hit him hard. When they reached the mining colony, it was clear they didn't belong. The air was filled with smoke and noise. Jace went to trade scrap parts for fuel. Zira and Alari stayed on the ship, hidden in the back. A grizzled merchant looked over the parts and grunted. "Where'd you get Zalari tech?" Jace stiffened. "Found it in the desert." The man squinted at him. "You sure about that?" Jace forced a smile. "I don't lie about scrap." He got the fuel, but as he turned to leave, he heard a whisper behind him. "Alert bounty net. The fugitives might be here." Jace didn't run. He walked fast and, calm, head down. But inside, he was already preparing for another chase. When he returned, Zyra's eyes were already on him. "They know?" "Maybe," he said. "We can't stay." The ship launched again, rising into the sky like a shadow in the smoke. As they left the planet, Alari sat close beside Jace and whispered, "They will never stop hunting us. But if you stay, we will never stop protecting you." Jace looked at her, at Zyra, at the stars ahead. He realized something strange. He didn't feel alone anymore. Jace landed the ship on the edge of Rovec Station, a busy starport floating just above the atmosphere of a gas giant. The place was filled with ships of all shapes and colors, crowded walkways, and thousands of travelers moving through metal halls like rivers of noise. It was the perfect place to disappear, or get caught. Zira warned him not to trust anyone. "No smiles here are real," she said. He nodded. "We just need food, filters, and coolant, in and out." Alari stayed behind on the ship while Jace and Zyra walked through the station's lower markets. Her silver cloak covered her hair and face, but her glowing eyes still caught attention. Jace tried to keep her close, speaking softly. "Just act bored, like you've done this 1,000 times." Zyra didn't answer. She didn't need to. Every movement she made showed she was ready, every breath measured, every step quiet. They found a trader selling coolant packs. Jace began to negotiate, but something felt off. The trader was too friendly, too eager. He kept looking behind Jace as if waiting for someone. That's when Zira grabbed his arm and whispered, "Walk, now." They turned quickly and disappeared into the crowd, leaving the goods behind. Jace didn't ask questions. If Zyra said run, you ran. Back at the ship, Alari met them at the ramp, her face pale. "There are patrols scanning ships. Someone reported us." Jace cursed under his breath. "We need to leave now." Zira stepped inside and began prepping the launch. Alari helped Jace check the fuel lines. Everything was rushed. Too rushed. And then, the blast. A small explosion rocked the ship. Sparks flew, and the left wing drooped. Smoke rose from the underside. "They hit the engine housing," Jace shouted. "We're not flying anywhere." Outside, heavy boots were stomping. Soldiers, not bounty hunters. Real soldiers in black armor with the crest of the Zalari Council shining on their chests. Jace pulled out his old blaster. He had barely used it since Earth. His hands shook, but he stood at the door. Zyra came up beside him, twin blades sliding from her wrists, eyes glowing like fire. "They want us alive," she said, "but they'll kill you." "I'm not leaving you," Jace said. Alari stood behind them, breathing hard. Her voice was almost a whisper. "We can't win this, unless I try." Zira turned. "No. There's no other way." Jace looked between them. "What's she talking about?" Zyra's voice was cold. "She wants to use the pulse." Jace blinked. "What pulse?" Alari stepped forward, her hands already glowing blue. "Our bodies store energy, not just for healing, but for destruction. The pulse is raw power, but if I use it at full strength, I might not survive." "No," Jace said. "We'll find another way." Zira took Alari's hand. "You're not doing this." The sound of marching grew louder. Blaster clicks echoed through the metal halls. "They're right outside," Ilari said softly. "And we don't have time." Jace clenched his jaw. "Then we fight. Together." The door burst open. Black-armored soldiers rushed in, shouting commands. Zyra moved like lightning. Her blades danced, slicing through weapons, armor, and limbs. Jace fired 2 shots, hitting one soldier in the chest. Ilari stood in the center, eyes closed, humming that same soft melody she always sang. One soldier raised a heavy cannon, aimed straight at Jace. Zyra couldn't reach him in time. Then Ilari's eyes opened, and the world stopped. A wave of blue light exploded from her body. Not heat, not fire, pure force shaking the walls and ripping the metal floor like paper. The soldiers flew backward, some crashing into walls, others screaming as their weapons melted in their hands. Jace hit the ground hard, blinded by light. His ears rang. The air buzzed. When the glow faded, the room was silent. Smoke filled the space where the soldiers had stood. Zyra crawled to Ilari, who was lying on the ground, barely breathing. "Ilari," she shouted. Jace rushed to help. "She's burning up, her skin's glowing too fast." Zyra placed both hands on her sister's chest. "Don't you leave me." Ilari opened her eyes, barely. "You were right, sister. Humans do care." And then she passed out. Jace held his breath. "Is she?" Zyra placed her ear to Ilari's chest. "She's alive, but weak." Jace stood up. "We have to move. They'll send more." Together, they carried Ilari back to the ship. Jace ran diagnostics. The engine was damaged, but not beyond repair. "We can fly in 20 minutes, he said. "Maybe less." Zyra placed a blanket over her sister. Her voice shook for the first time. "She's never used that much power, not even during the purge." Jace turned. "What? Purge?" But she didn't answer. He looked out the window. Troops were regrouping. Red lights flashed down the corridor. Jace took a deep breath and whispered to himself, "I bought them for a drink. Now I'm willing to die for them." And deep inside, he already knew. He wasn't just protecting them anymore. He belonged to them now. The ship shook violently as it broke through the upper cloud layers of the gas giant. Warning lights flashed across the cockpit, and the control panel flickered with every turn. Jace fought the steering column, sweat pouring down his face. Zyra sat beside him, her gaze locked on the scanners, watching for enemy signals. Behind them, Ilari lay wrapped in blankets, still unconscious, her skin flickering dim blue with every breath, like a fading star. They were alive, barely, and every system on the ship was failing. Jace slammed a fist against the console. "We need a place to land, somewhere quiet, somewhere off every map." Zyra tapped a command into the nav unit. "There's a dead moon nearby. It was abandoned after the mining collapse. No colonies, no patrols." Jace nodded. "Set a course." The old ship creaked as it turned, but it held together, just barely. An hour later, they landed on the surface of the moon. Gray rocks stretched to the horizon. Cold wind howled outside. Inside, it was silent, too silent. Jace lowered the ramp and stepped out into the dust. Zyra followed, scanning with her blade drawn. She never lowered her guard. Jace turned to her. "How long do we have before they find us again?" Zyra didn't look up. "Not long. The pulse left a mark. They'll trace the energy signature." Jace looked toward the ship. "And Ilari?" "She needs rest. But more than that, she needs balance. Her core is unstable." Jace frowned. "She's not a weapon, Zyra." Zyra turned to face him. She was made to be one. There was pain in her voice, hidden under strength. Jace could hear it now. Zyra wasn't just a protector. She was a sister carrying the weight of 1,000 secrets, and the burden of keeping them both alive in a galaxy that wanted them erased. Back inside, the ship, Ilari stirred. Her voice was weak but clear. "Jace." He knelt beside her. "I'm here." She opened her glowing eyes. "I saw something, in the dream, a city, burning, a throne, and you standing between 2 armies." Jace blinked. What does it mean? She smiled faintly. It means your part in this story isn't over. She passed out again. Later that evening, while Zyra stood watch outside, Jace walked the cold, rocky ground of the moon, trying to make sense of everything. How had his life gone from fixing broken machines to protecting alien royalty? He didn't understand fate or prophecy, but he knew this. He couldn't walk away now, not even if he wanted to. Suddenly, a noise echoed through the stillness. A high-pitched hum. Zyra shouted from the ridge, "They found us!" The sky split open as 3 sleek warships dropped from orbit. Drones rained down in perfect formation, red lights glowing, weapons locked. Jace ran back toward the ship, shouting, "Zyra, get Ilari inside!" She met him halfway, carrying her sister in her arms like she weighed nothing. "You start the ship. I'll hold them off." "No," Jace said. "We do this together." They didn't have time to argue. The drones swarmed down in waves. Zyra stood in the moonlight like a statue of war, eyes burning. As they closed in, she raised both arms, and a wave of flame burst from her hands, surprising even Jace. The ground cracked beneath her. The air rippled with heat. Jace pulled Ilari into the cockpit and strapped her in. He jumped into the pilot seat and fired up the systems. "Come on, old girl. Just one more miracle." Outside, Zyra fought like a living storm. Her movements were sharp, deadly, beautiful. Every drone that got close was sliced or burned, but they kept coming. Jace shouted through the comm, "We're ready, get in." Zyra looked back just as one of the warships opened fire. Jace's stomach dropped. "Zyra!" But instead of dodging, Zyra did something else. She turned and ran, straight toward the blast, throwing a glowing dagger at the ship's cannon. It hit the barrel and exploded, throwing her backward in a wave of fire. Jace ran out and caught her. She was bleeding, breathing hard, but alive. He carried her inside and closed the ramp. "I thought you said sleep is weakness." She smiled, through the pain. That wasn't sleep. The ship lifted just as the drones closed in again. Jace pushed the engine to full. This time the ship moved faster, smoother, as if it understood what was at stake. Behind them, the warships gave chase. Ilari woke again, barely able to speak. "To the nebula. The veil of fire. They won't follow us there." Jace checked the chart. "That place is unstable," Zyra nodded. "Which is why it's perfect." Jace set the course. The ship sped into the stars, a streak of light fleeing from darkness. And for the first time, Jace felt it. Not fear, not confusion. Purpose. They weren't just running anymore, they were rising. The ship tore through the swirling chaos of the veil of fire, a glowing nebula filled with storms of energy and collapsing stars. Lightning danced across the sky in purple and gold. It was a place where most ships dared not fly, unstable, unpredictable, alive. But Jace didn't hesitate. His hands moved over the controls with calm focus, guiding the old craft through madness like it was part of him. Behind him, Ilari was strapped to a seat, still weak but awake, her fingers faintly glowing as she quietly whispered coordinates only she could sense. Zyra, bruised and bleeding, stood guard at the rear window, her blade held tight, eyes locked on the scanners. They had escaped 3 fleets, 2 bounty factions, and a death warrant issued by one of the most feared councils in the galaxy. But even here, in a place where stars screamed and space bent, they weren't safe. Because now it wasn't just soldiers hunting them. The High Enforcer's ship had arrived. It wasn't just a vessel. It was a fortress, black as death with wings like blades and a beam cannon that could split moons. Jace's screen lit up red as it broke through the nebula's edge, and Zyra stepped forward, recognizing it instantly. "He came himself," she whispered. "Who?" Jace asked, already knowing the answer. "The one who killed our mother," Zyra said. "He will not stop until both of us are ash." Jace stared at the screen, jaw tight. "Then we stop him first." The ship shook as warning alarms blared. The Enforcer's vessel had locked on. A voice came through the radio, sharp as steel. Surrender the creations, human, or die with them. Jace reached over and shut the comm off. No more running, he said. No more hiding. Ilari lifted her hand. I can shield the ship for a little while, but I'll need both of you to do what comes next. Jace looked at Zyra. We fight? Zyra's voice was steady. We end this. As the Enforcer's ship charged its cannon, Jace flew straight toward it. The nebula swirled around them like fire in water. Ilari's hands began to glow and a protective sphere of blue light surrounded their ship. The enemy fired. The beam struck the shield, once, twice, each time weaker than the last. Ilari's light grew brighter, her skin almost transparent, her body shaking. She's burning up, Jace shouted. Zyra placed her hand on her sister's shoulder. Just a little longer. The Enforcer's ship moved closer, launching drones, hundreds of them. Jace turned hard, spinning the ship through a maze of asteroid-like debris inside the nebula. Lightning crackled across the hull. Every second was a breath stolen from death. Then Zyra stood and stepped into the center of the ship. Her blades retracted, her hands open. This is my moment, she said. Jace frowned. What are you doing? Zyra looked at him with eyes full of something he hadn't seen before. Peace. I was made to protect her, and now I know why. You were never just a buyer, Jace. You were fate. We all were. She turned to her sister. Ilari, give me your core. Ilari's eyes widened. Zyra, you won't survive. I wasn't meant to survive. I was meant to finish what our mother started. Jace stepped forward. There has to be another way. Zyra smiled gently. You gave us freedom. Let me give you a future. She placed her hand on Ilari's chest, and a stream of white-blue light flowed from one sister to the other. Zyra's body began to glow brighter and brighter, pulsing with energy, her figure almost dissolving into pure light. Jace ran to the console. The Enforcer ship's weak point, it's the core chamber midship. Zyra didn't need to hear it. She turned, opened the ramp, and leapt into space. For one perfect second, she became a star. She shot through the nebula like a comet, passing through the drones, dodging beams until she reached the enemy ship. She crashed into the heart of it and exploded. A blast of light swallowed the darkness. The Enforcer's ship shattered in silence, fragments drifting like sparks across the sky. Inside their ship, everything went still. Jace stood frozen, eyes wide, breath stolen. Ilari collapsed. He caught her in his arms. She's gone, he whispered. Tears streamed down Ilari's face. She kept her promise. The nebula calmed. The scanners went dark. No more enemies followed. They drifted in silence for hours, the stars watching over them. Jace wrapped a blanket around Ilari and sat beside her. You still have me, he said softly. Ilari leaned against his shoulder. And you still have me. He smiled. So what now? She looked up, her eyes glowing gently again. We find a new home, somewhere quiet, somewhere we can plant her memory in the stars. He nodded. As the ship moved through the quiet night, Jace placed Zyra's memory crystal on the dashboard. It shimmered softly, humming with warmth. He hadn't just saved two alien girls. One had become his heart, the other had become his fire, and he would never let go of either.